to the Bridge the Gap podcast. Here's your host, Dustin Udke.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Bridge the Gap. We got a really fun episode tonight. We're going to be talking all things fantasy football and how you make friends out of your league mates. And when I thought of this subject, there's only one person I thought to bring on, and that is Miss Wendi Early. Wendi, how are you today?
Well, good evening there, Dustin. I'm great. Thank you for having me on.
And those who don't know Wendi is part of Women in Fantasy Football. She does stuff with the sports affiliation. She is all over the place, always doing these live vlogs from wherever she's at on her phone. You can catch her down at the Combine sometimes in Canton. Wendi, tell everyone where they can find you and what you got going on for this upcoming football season in just 2 days.
I know. I'm so excited. It's like Christmas. I just, you wait and you wait and you wait and it's finally here. So, but yeah, thanks a lot, Dustin. I'm really happy to be here. Everyone can find me on Twitter. I will never call it X. They can, Nope, not going to do it. So it is at Wendi Early. Make sure you spell my name correctly. I have a weird way of spelling my first name and my last name. So, it makes it a little difficult. But you can find me at Women of Fantasy Football and also the sports affiliation. So what I have coming up, which I'm super excited, last week was my first week where I jumped in with Kelly Singh, who is a very, very dear friend of mine. And she had reached out to me and she said, hey, I've got this show. It's called The Sneaky Flex, and it's with the 9-year-old twin girls, Dave Fantasy's daughters. So I'm like super excited. It's Maisie and Rowan, 9-year-old twin girls, and they are the next generation of women in fantasy sports. So Kelly was like, hey, would you like to host this show? It's 15 minutes. She's a little bit overwhelmed. Kelly's got a lot going on with her career, and she didn't want the show to go away. And I'm like, yeah, I played in a league with the kids before, and they killed me, Dustin. They killed me. So they definitely know what they're doing. And they're so much fun. So I got to hop on with them last week just as kind of like a, hey, get to know them and kind of introduce, me as being the next host. So that will be the Sneaky Flex, and it is going to be with the Sneaky Girls. And we will be on Thursday nights at 6:30 p.m. Central Time with 3 Sneaky Flex plays from each of them. And they're going to tell you about why you should be playing them every week. And you're going to want to listen because they do know what they're talking about. I'm like super excited about it. So yeah, so that'll be starting this Thursday at 6:30.
That's awesome. I think it's great that you're out there hosting. And if you don't follow Wendi already, her Twitter and the Women of Fantasy is scrolling at the bottom all show long, along with Bridge the Gap. If you give us a follow, if you're watching this, come over to the YouTube, drop a comment, hit that like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. Wendi, we always start most weeks with a game.
What exactly is the game?
Well, it is not a quiz or a trivia contest, nor is it a test of brute strength or athleticism. At its core, it's just a children's game, and I would wager that some of you here this evening have played Would You Rather?
Classic Would You Rather. I got a scenario for Wendi, since we're talking all things friends and fantasy. Would you rather be in a league where there's absolutely no messages, no trash talk, no trades, no nothing? Or would you rather be in a league that's on the other side where you get hundreds of messages a day on all various text, Twitter DMs, league chat DMs, Instagram, all those ways, phone calls, where you're just inundated with hundreds and hundreds of messages a day? Some are trade offers, some are just trash talk, where you just have to wade through it all. Which would you rather have, no conversation or too much conversation?
I am so glad that this is the question of would you rather. And there's got to be something in between. But since there's not, Dustin, I want to talk about this a little bit because of the fact with the 100+ messages a day. And I can't imagine for someone like you, Dustin, that's probably in way more leagues than I am.
Yeah, not that many.
But I also had the Battle of the Sexes tournament that was starting up, and we had quite a few. We have 24 divisions of that, I think.
Wow.
Scott Fish was starting. The Scott Fish Bowl draft was coming up. Everything started at once, and my phone, I literally was ready to throw my phone out the window. I'm at work. I'm stressed out at work. I just shut it off. I said, you know what? I can't do it. I was crashing and burning. So I'm going to go with no messages. Okay. Only
Yeah.
because of what I had gone through. But my point of this is I want to talk a little bit about mental health, because my mental health was not good that day that all of that started going on with, the draft starting. So my phone's going off. People are asking questions. We had issues here and there, little small stuff, but all that little small stuff, along with all of your everyday real life stuff, I was done. And I was missing my turn. I was, timing out in drafts. I don't do that. I don't like when people do that. You better have a damn good reason for doing that. I had a good reason. Okay. I
Yeah.
couldn't handle it. A couple people reached out to me, and that's why I'm so glad I'm here for the Friends edition of your show. So I do want to give a big shout out to Sam Wise, Buy and Sell You,
Yep.
and Sniper Melanie Harris. Those two saved my ass, and excuse my French, okay? And that's mellow. You know me, okay,
Yeah.
Dustin. You know me. That's mellow. But it's like they were texting me. They were like, "Hey, girl, you're on the clock. Just letting you know." And I'm like, "Where? Because
Yeah.
I just couldn't handle it. So those two people, along with some of my other friends that I have met here, saved me. I just I didn't want to do it anymore. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so done. I'm so done. It was just one of those days. So, make sure if you need to do that, step away, shut it all down, talk to someone, whatever the case may be. That's what these friends are for. And they did. They all stepped up for me, and I appreciated it so much.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When we talk about friends and fantasy, like notifications on your phone are great, but when you have Sleeper, ESPN, all these other, notifications of injuries, and now you're on the clock. When you're in a bunch of leagues, it can be overwhelming. I am one that I don't have any notifications really on my phone except for like text messages. And the people who know me have my number and they text me, right? And I prefer a
Right.
text message over and a phone call, right? Like I prefer those modes of communication, and we'll get into that later. But it is part of being a friend is reaching out to people and going, yeah, I know this seems insignificant, but you don't know what part that plays, right? Because there is just those little things all do add up. You can get nickeled and dimed to death in life with all the little things, right? At the end of the day, timing out and auto picking for a draft pick is not a super consequential thing, but that might be the straw that broke the camel's back for you.
Yep.
And a friend reaching out and going, "Hey, just so you know, you have 10 minutes left on your clock," might be the difference of you going, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed it." And you're not upset about the pick. You're upset that you missed it, that you were overwhelmed. And the difference of you going, "Oh man, I can't believe I missed it. I'm overwhelmed." Where you going, "Hey, thank you so much." Like those little texts. And I tell people all the time, like, it costs nothing to be nice,
Right.
but the benefit of it could be so much more, like that simple hello, thank you, that simple text of, "Hey, hope you're doing okay," or "Hey, I saw you tweeted something, I hope you're doing all right." I've reached out to people just where I see like, I'm having a rough day, just reach out, text, "Hey, I hope you're doing okay, man. Stick with it. Like if you ever need something, I'm here." I don't know what that's doing for them, but that could be the difference. It could literally save someone's life. And I think that's really important when we talk about mental health, that we don't know what everybody's going through. And all we can do is do what we can do, but what we can do is send a text message. We can give them a phone call, shoot them a message, and just say, "Hey, hope you're doing all right. Hope you're okay." And I think that's huge. So I would think there is a nice medium in between of no messages and hundreds of messages.
Yes.
I think I would lean towards the no messages. When there's too many messages, and I just don't read them all. When I get in group chats and there's just like 50 things, I'm like, all right, let me just scroll to the end. Like, and someone catch me up if there's something that I need to know. They'll fill me in later. I'm like you. I'm a huge extrovert where I think I want to be in communication with people and I want to talk, but I can find other ways. I don't need my phone blowing up, 24/7 on messages. So I think that's right. If you guys are watching, drop in the chat on YouTube, Bridge the Gap YouTube, what you'd rather prefer, no messages or 100 messages a day. Let us know what you guys would think in the chat. So, Wendy, when did you start playing fantasy football and how did you get into fantasy football?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's probably about 15 years ago. I just had a little home league, and I had been in one league, and I'm like, the way that they ran that, I'm like, and I wasn't a pro, and I'm still not a pro, but I'm like,
You're a
that
pro.
doesn't
You
seem
are a
right.
pro, Wendy.
I'm like, that doesn't seem right. So I'm like, you know what? I don't like your rules. So I'm going to finish this season, but next season I'm going to have my own. So I did. I was a commissioner for a couple years. I enjoyed it. I had a home draft. Everybody came to my house. Back then, it wasn't as, to me, probably as popular, but now once I found Twitter, things changed, Dustin. Like, I am not kidding you. Like, a life-changing situation here. Mostly for the good, seriously. But after I played a little bit, people drop out, and you don't have those live drafts anymore. So I started doing a couple online things, and I'm gonna say about 4 years ago, I was on Facebook. Okay, I'm old. All right, I did not do Twitter. I had Twitter, but I never used it. So, but I was on Facebook, and I'm walking through Walmart, right? And I had been following Lisa Ann. Like, I watched all of her lives. I would comment. She would answer questions. She would do a start sit thing on Sunday mornings, and I was there every Sunday morning, asking her start sit questions. Well, I'm walking through Walmart, and like a little ding goes off on my phone, and she's like, "Hey, I have an opening in one of my leagues. Would you want to play?" And I'm like, looking around. I'm like looking at my phone going, "Are you kidding me? She got hacked. This is not, no way is Lisa Ann sending me a message." And she goes, "I really want more women, to be involved. And, I would love for you to take over this team." And I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And then she was like, "Come over to Twitter. All the fun's over here." So I kind of migrated over there, and for the past 5 years, I'm going to say things have just really, really changed for me.
Yeah. And part of that is, right, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like what you enjoy most about fantasy is the connections, is the people,
Yep.
is the camaraderie. Like, you are notoriously Bob Harris's best friend, according to
Yes.
Twitter and the T-shirts that I've seen. Talk to me
Bestie.
about that.
He's my
Like,
bestie.
how did that come about? Because Bob Harris is, right, a name, right? He is an OG
He is
fantasy
a
guy.
national treasure and
Yes.
he should be, yeah. I mean, no one can say a bad word about Bob Harris because he's
Yes.
just that guy.
So how did you become Bob Harris's bestie?
Okay. So once again, I migrated over to Twitter. I started listening to Sirius XM. I think I bought a car and it came with 3 free months of Sirius XM. And I'm like, "Oh, hey, look, there's fantasy football shows on." I was in a box. I just
Yep.
I didn't know all these things existed. All I knew was my friends were not like me. My friends are not
Mm.
like me. They're still not, my friends here, but there's other friends that are like me. They're all just like me,
Yeah.
So I was just kind of like, well, um, you know, I was to the point where I was reading his bio, well, his pin tweet at the top, and what his story was strikingly similar to my story. With not feeling good about your weight, not feeling good because of your weight. I weighed almost 300 pounds, Dustin. I was at 298 pounds, and I saw a picture of myself, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm 6 feet tall." I was thought, "Oh, I'm hiding my weight." I was
Yep.
hiding nothing. Okay. It was there. So I'm like, when I saw his story and what he did and turned his life around, he got healthy. He lost all this weight. Everything's great. He was an inspiration. And that was kind of my story as well, starting in 2016. So, so I started following him. I would watch Saturday mornings at work. I'm at work, but you know what? I'm not missing Bob Harris's show.
Yeah.
I'm by myself on Saturday, so I could usually get away with it. So one day, I put something on there. I'm like, "Oh, hi, Bob." And he's like, "Hi, Wendi Early." And I was like, "Oh, Bob Harris just said
Honey.
hi to me." Yeah. I'm like, "Bob Harris just said hi to me. We're besties. It's done. It's written in stone." Well, come to find out, Dustin, he says hi to everyone that says hi to him. Okay. But I did not know this at the
You didn't
time.
know it.
And it doesn't matter because it happened, and I just kept saying it and saying it. And so one day I was playing in his Fantasy Cares Eliminator, one of his eliminators last year. and I can't remember what it was, but Royal Slade was in there in the same one that I was in. And I had put something and Royal put, "Hey, way to go, Wendi. That was so cool that you did that," or whatever. And all of a sudden, Bob Harris jumps in and he goes, "That's my bestie." I go, I told you that if I said it enough times, it was going to happen. So he is great. He puts up with my shenanigans. He is one of the people that I know truly is a friend. You've got your core group of people, and you know what, you guys, sometimes that core group changes,
Yeah.
and you have to roll with the changes and accept the changes because maybe you're not compatible with that core group of people, but you can kind of migrate over to another one. But Bob Harris will always be my guy.
And Bob is one of the nicest people that I've
Yep.
ever met. You're right. No one can say anything bad about Bob. There's just not a bad thing to be said about him. I think you brought up a good point, though, when we talk about how do you go beyond your league and making friends. It's really just kind of putting yourself out there, just sending that message of, "Hey, Bob Harris," and he goes, "Hey, Wendi," right? And you just don't know.
Yeah.
Like, you might be in a random league. You could be in one of these big tournaments like a Scott Fish Bowl or Baby Bowl or Royal, and you're in these random leagues, and just say, "Hey, how's it going?" It doesn't have to be, "Hey, do you want to trade X for Y?" It could just be, "Hey,
Right.
how's it going?" And I think this is why I want to bring, because you're one of those, you're really good about that. I know when we met at the combine, my friend Tristan, and you hit it off because you both have diabetes, and it was like you guys just
Yeah.
instantly like bonded
I
over that. And,
know.
because you're both, you and Tristan are both unashamed and unafraid of telling that story of like, and Tristan does it in a very joking way where he'll walk up to you and go, every time I see him, he's like, "Hey, you want any drugs?" So he's always got his insulin, right? And it's just that's his icebreaker. And I think you guys just bond over that, and just being able to be open and honest and not being shy is hard for people. But how do you do that? How do you just be not shy when you like, is there a magic trick that you do to just being like throwing yourself out there and not worried about what, then they not really worried about
Yeah.
people say or think?
You know what? I'm one of the I want everyone to like me. I do. I'm one of those people, like, I'm going to be upset if I think you don't like me, or just because I think I'm a fairly likable person. I don't really try and cause a lot of waves or anything like that. But you're right. You have to reach out, and 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say 10 times out of 10, whenever I've reached out to somebody through fantasy football, through Twitter, through Facebook, however it is, I've never gotten a, "Hey, leave me alone." And I don't care who you are, and point being taken, Stefania Bell. Let's talk about Stefania
Oh,
Bell.
your famous
Okay.
Stefania Bell story.
Yes, at the combine, she's Stefania frickin' Bell, and she's taking time to sit and talk to me, let me interview her, ask her a couple questions. But it was more about the bonding that I got with her, that one-on-one with her. No one is off limits. I mean, especially like, say you go to the expo, you can walk up to anybody at the
Yep.
expo, and they're going to talk to you. So it is kind of reaching out, and you're going to be surprised at the common things that go on, like just with Tristan. Oh, hey, we both have diabetes. And you know what, by the way, I freaking love him, and we still
Yeah,
talk.
Tristan is
Yeah,
great.
we will text once in a while, "Hey man, how's it going?" type thing. And honestly, how did I meet you, Dustin? You came up to me at the Scott Fish Bowl live draft last year, and you're like, "Hey, Wendi, how you liking your team so far?" And I was just like, "Oh, hi, Dustin." I mean, because I knew who you were, but sometimes if you don't, see the person's face, or you
Yeah.
see their little icon of, or what their little profile picture looks like, that one-on-one, is just so crazy. But you do have to put yourself out there. And you're one of the ones that you're not shy. You are not shy. You are going to go up and you're going to talk to people. And I appreciated that so much because it made me feel a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more welcome. So if I can do that to someone else, that's kind of what that's about.
Yeah, I agree. And that's so the story of us meeting was Scott Fish Bowl. I live in Madison. You're outside Chicago. They were having a Scott Fish Bowl live draft in Chicago. I was not in the divisions. And HooveTube said,
Yeah.
"Oh, Dustin, he lives 30 minutes away from me." He said, "Hey, you should come down to Chicago for the draft and hang out." And I was like, "I don't know." And you just commented like, "Yeah, you should come down." I was like, "All right, well, I've seen Wendi on Twitter, like, okay, cool. So I just decided to go down. I talked to my wife and said, hey, it's probably gonna be a great opportunity to meet some people. As an extrovert, I enjoy people, so it's it's worth the time. I went down there and you were sitting there talking to Andy Behrens and Jim Coventry,
Yep.
who again are, in my opinion, big names in the space, right? Like
Oh, yes.
huge,
Yes, they
massive names.
are. I
And
had
I
no
was like,
clue. I had
yeah,
no clue. I mean, I knew who they
exactly.
were, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I went over and sat down. There was an empty chair by you guys. I said, Wendi, how's your team going? And kind of talked to Andy and Jim. And you just don't know what those things are going to lead to. So who reaches out and says, hey, Dustin, you come? I come over, say hi to you. And then as I'm leaving, Jim Coventry goes, hey, let's talk for 10 minutes. And he was like, I really liked you had to say we had to talk and exchange information. Now I've been on the show a bunch of times, and it just, you never know what's going to happen. And I think what we are afraid of in life is we're waiting for the next door to be open and we're waiting for the next thing to happen. And I think when you look back in hindsight, it's those little things that you just can't see until hindsight. So you do have to kind of get out there, out of your element a
Yeah.
little bit. Worst case scenario, you walk up to someone and say, hey, I'm Dustin. And someone goes, okay, cool. And they just blow you off. What did you
It
lose in that
happens.
situation? Yeah.
Right.
What did you lose? You lost a minute of your life? Okay, no big deal. But someone like you and like Hoove reached out to me on a random Wednesday and said, and I've only seen Hoove once, and this was at the Chicago Live Draft. I've only seen him one time. He goes, you going to the game tomorrow? And I said, no. He goes, do you want to? And I go, yeah, I guess. He goes, I have an extra ticket. Want to come to the Packers game? So I sent my wife, hey, honey, can I go to the game tomorrow? Yeah. She goes, who are you going with? I go, Hoove. And she goes, Hoove who? And I go, Hoove Tube? I don't know who. He's just Hoove Tube on Twitter. I don't know. And so I drive. He's like, maybe here, and we'll carpool. So I drive out to his place, 30 minutes away. And I get in the car and I go, hey, before we leave, I have one quick question. What's your first name? He's like, oh, it's Nick. And I was like, so I called my wife. I was like, his name's Nick, honey. And now Who's one of my best friends. Like,
Right.
I drove back with
He's
him and
great.
Heidi from the expo. Yeah, he's great. Like, we text all the time. We played Fortnite the other night together. It's just those little things that him just reaching out and going, I have an extra ticket to the Packers game. I like Dustin. He lives close by. Like, a couple other people couldn't go. I was probably his fourth or fifth choice, but I was available.
Who
And we have a
cares?
great,
Yeah.
we have a
Heck
great friendship.
yeah.
So I do think if you're out there and you're in a league, and you're probably most people watching this are probably in a league where they know one or two people really well. They probably know one or two people really well. The person that got them in the league, they probably know the rest of the league. It's a 10, 12 team. There's probably 8 to 10 people that you know their names. Maybe you work with them, but you don't know them too well. Take that leap. Like, take that step and just say, hey, player Y, like, how was your Labor Day? What do you got going on? Like, what are you doing for the first week of football? Take that step and just send a message. Not only can you facilitate friendships, you can also facilitate trades easier. It's easier to trade with a friend than it is a stranger. But I think you can build friends. And I keep telling people, like, you have to get off the platform. That's why this is titled Beyond the Platform, because you have to get past sending messages on Sleeper or sending messages on Twitter. You have to get to the point where, like, hey, here's my phone. Like, just I've sent my phone number to a bazillion people. Like, hey, here's my number. If you ever need anything, call me or text me. And most people give me their number back. Some don't. Like, I
Yeah.
don't care. I give out my business. My business card has my number on it. I give it out to people because I'd rather you just call me and say, oh, hey, this is so and so. We met. Okay, cool. Nice to meet you. I don't care if I have your number or not. Like, we may only text once or twice a year. There's guys in Kansas City. I met them at the draft 2 years ago. They run Starcade Media. I see them at the combine in the draft. They have my number. They text me and I randomly message them. I was like, hey, I don't have your number, but here's what I know. And they're like, oh, cool. We'll send you a text. I'm like, sweet. Get out of your comfort zone and make friends, because I do think you can find, and I think you're a good example. I think we've seen plenty of examples of long lasting friendships that come out of these leagues. And you're right. Sometimes your friendship group changes. I was in a keeper league with 3 or 4 friends, and I moved to Wisconsin, and that league kind of fell apart, and I kind of left, and it's kind of thing. And I've
Yeah.
taken a couple of those other friends, and we've gone to another leagues, and now friendships have grown because we were in these leagues. So if you're watching this and you want to make friends, reach out to people in your league. Fantasy football is the common starting ground. It shouldn't be the ending ground. And I tweeted this out the other day that a lot of times your live draft or your online draft is the only instance of you talking with your league mates. That should not be the case. The draft should just be one occurrence of you communicating with your league. Now, I get it, you guys might not be able to hang out every week to watch football, but you should be communicating with majority of your league on a regular basis about non-league stuff. And that's the way it should be. We all love live drafts, but a live draft is a lot more fun when you have a relationship with these people. It allows you to trash talk more because you know about their life. That's where it should be. And I just think there's a way of doing that And you talked about finding your people, and I was listening to Dr. Kevin's the Fantasy Unlimited. He had Gina Noble on, and she talked about like finding her people. When you find your people, it's so just
You know,
instantaneously clicks, right? You're like, oh my gosh, we're just gonna geek out on football. That's why the combine was so much fun because me, you, Tristan, and Dave just were like, we're gonna talk football and just nerd out. And when you find your people, it's just a completely different connection. So
you know,
Wendy,
I
go
had the
ahead.
time of my life. I have to tell you, at the combine, Women of Fantasy Football gifted me with the, media credentials to be able to go down there. I knew nothing about college football. I knew nothing about anything with the combine, but between you, Dave, and Tristan, and I tell everyone this, the three of you took me under your wing. You did not leave me alone. And that's one of those things. That's what this
Yeah,
is all about. Hi,
yep, I
Kelly.
agree. Hi, Kelly. How's it going? And Kelly's a perfect example. Like I knew of Kelly on Twitter and reached out about some stuff, and now she's writing for Dynasty Pros, and I can just text her and say, "Hey, this." And Kelly, if you weren't watching last week, I pulled a Clayton tune, which I don't know where it's at. I pulled a.
The
I'll
mayor of
capture it.
Toontown is present. The mayor of
This last week,
Toontown is
little
present.
Clayton tune rookie patch. I was like, "Oh, I pulled this," and I mentioned, I said, "It's got to go to the mayor of Toontown and Kelly." Um, and that's what it's about. It's about right when you're at an event, so the expo, the combine, or your local draft, and you see someone that if you just vaguely know them, say hi. Even if you don't know them, if you just see someone who's by themselves, just say hi, say, hey, do you want to come with us? Like, it doesn't cost you anything to add another person at your table at dinner. It doesn't cost you anything to say, hey, my name's Dustin. How are you? And that's my biggest thing. Any other tips for people that are playing fantasy and how they can be outside their league to make friends? Any other tips for those people, Wendy?
Is tell people, especially you had mentioned you might not know everyone in your league, or, put your stuff out there, start
Yep.
asking questions. You'd be surprised. Erica, America 108.
Yes.
Okay, so we're talking one day, and somebody said, "Where's everyone from?"
Yep.
In all these leagues. So I'm like, Indiana, Indiana. She's like, "Oh, I used to live in Indiana." I'm like, "Oh, really? Where?" And she's like, "In Griffith. That's like 2 towns over from me."
Yep.
And I'm like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, I
Yeah.
mean, who knows? We could have crossed paths at one time.
Yeah.
So the next time she was in town, guess what? And I hadn't met her yet. I met her and her wife. We went out for dinner. The next morning, my husband, myself, Erica, and her wife Monica all went out for breakfast before they took off the next day. So, ask hey, where's everyone from? Or, hey, you guys got kids? Or, the people that want to talk are going to talk.
Yeah.
So it's the communication is key, definitely.
Yeah, you already have one common ground with fantasy
Hmm.
football. Find the next
Right.
common ground, whether that's where you're from or what you majored in college or what you do for work. Find that second common ground, and because once you get that, then you're like, okay, now we connect on multiple things. You and Tristan love
Yep.
football, and now you guys have diabetes to talk about, right? And you guys both went to the combines. You're getting more and more common ground. But that's the thing. Reach out to someone and go, hey, where are you from? And you might never know who's
Yep.
from where. Like you said with Erica, like you guys are from basically the same hometown. Like
Unbelievable.
that's right in a world where I don't know where she lives now, but
She's in Dallas.
so right, she's hours away, and you just never know. You never know who has family relatives. I'm a big proponent of when I go on vacation. Hey, who lives here that
I've
knows
noticed that about you.
yeah,
You're like, hey,
who lives here? I'm going to
yeah,
San Diego. Who has tips of restaurants? Who has things? And I got some really good tips from people when I went to San Diego.
I love it.
I just reached out, and I think that's a big part of it is just throw it out there and see what lands. And if you throw out, hey, where you all from, and only 3 people respond, well, maybe that takes a little extra effort to go to those other 7 people in your league or whatever it is and say, "Hey, where are you from? I maybe didn't notice," or tag them, right? Tag them in a DM on Twitter or Sleeper. Like I've sent stuff on Sleeper and it hasn't gone through, and all of a sudden I tag them like at whatever in the private message, and they go, "Oh, I didn't see these." I'm like, "Yeah, I know you probably had notifications turned off. You're not a sicko like me that's checking Sleeper, in April. But I just want to know how you're doing." And I think that's a big part of it. How much does friendship then play into fantasy in terms of like rivalry for you? Are you in a league with someone that you're friends with that does that friendship heighten the rivalry in fantasy a little bit? Does it heighten fantasy at all for you?
There's one guy. There is one guy from the beginning. He has done nothing but harass me. in the best possible way ever. And I love him, and his name is Scott Frankel. Scott Frankel was one of the first people that was telling me about all these charity tournaments. That guy plays every charity tournament
Oh yeah.
on the planet Earth.
Yep.
Is Scott Frankel's in it? He's
Yes.
the most kind of he is. You know what? But he harassed me so bad. We would just go back and forth on the banter, and he's become a great friend of mine. So if we're in a league together, it is nothing but trash talking the whole time. If you didn't know us, you'd probably think like we really didn't like each other. We really do like each other. Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anybody. Our secret.
Secret's safe. Yeah. But he's
Yeah.
definitely one. You have a few people here and there, but Scott's definitely one of my guys. So as a matter of fact, my daughter and I are going to WrestleMania in Las Vegas in April, and I just booked my hotel at his casino that he's at.
Nice.
I booked my hotel last night. He hooked me up with a little nice discount, and yeah, so I'm like super excited. I'm going to get to go hang out there. So again, it's that whole, even though he's my rival, he's also a very good friend.
Oh yeah, I have a friend in my dynasty league, and he's one of my best friends. But I give him trash all the time about stuff, and that's just it's strengthened our friendship because we can able to trash talk about his crappy trades or how he loves mobile quarterbacks that don't do anything in the league. It's like, cool, man. He's never going to be a good player, but I'm glad you're excited about him. It was cool. He came to the draft with me, and he saw Jalen Milroe, who's the quarterback for Alabama, who's like his favorite player right now, and he's a pretty cool, he's a doctor. He's down there. And he total fangirled out, and we gave him crap the rest of the weekend. I mean, he just went up and was like, "Oh my gosh, Jenny Merrill, and I love you, and I have all my stats, and my phone was started." And he just and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing right now? Like, you sound so ridiculous. You sound nuts." And he got done. He was like, "I blew it." And I was like, "Oh, you totally blew it." And I was with a couple of people. We just gave him crap the rest of the weekend, and it was just so fun. But that was a bonding experience for us. So I think you're right. Like, rivalry and friendship can definitely heighten fantasy football. And fantasy football should be fun, right? At the end of the day, it should be fun, and winning is fun. But playing with people that you have fun with and can have fun with heightens the experience. Like, it's no fun playing. No one wants to play in a league. That's why you're not in a league with you don't just join. Most people just don't join random leagues on the internet with 10-team league with 9 other people they don't know. You at least know one person because you want to have fun. You want to be in there. You're right, Kelly. It absolutely should be fun, and fun should be the priority. Winning should not be the priority, in my opinion. Fun should be the priority for fantasy football, and friendship should be. I will say this: I think the biggest mistake that happens in today's society is we stay online. We stay on the group messages, the group chats, which are fine things. I think they should be active, but we never go outside of that. We never go from the platform. We never get beyond that. We never go to Twitter, or from Twitter to a text message or phone call, or sharing numbers. I don't think I think I've called you once, Wendy. Like, we were in Indy. Like, hey, but other than that, just a text, like a text. But at least I know I could call you. And there's been times where people that I've
No,
only
you know what? You did call me, and because I had questions on what to even take to the
yes, you
combine,
did.
and you took the time to call me and go over that with me as opposed to a text, which
Yep.
I was just like, "Oh my god, this is so great." And
It's so much easier to communicate that way.
the information that you gave me between you and Kelly, you two were the two that I listened to and gathered all that information, and I had all the stuff I needed when I was there. I had
Exactly.
all the stuff I needed because of you
You did. And
guys.
I think that's what it is. And going to these live events, whether that's a Scott Fishbowl live event, I'm a big proponent of, if there's one within 2-3 hours of you, go to it. Even if you're not
Yeah.
drafting, just go meet people, hang out. I prefer them when I'm not drafting. I drafted this year in Madison at the live draft. I didn't get to mingle as nearly as much because I was worried about the board, and
Yeah.
luckily I had the
Yeah.
the 101, and I get to pick and then go away and come back. But I love going to Chicago. I've been to Chicago live draft the past 2 years because I love just coming and hanging out and being free to just do whatever I want, right? Like, I can stay as long as I
And
want. I can help
And
out. I
you
can talk.
when you walked in the door, Steven Johnson and me, we lit up like a Christmas tree. I'm like, "Oh my god, Dustin's here." I was so happy because I didn't think you were coming, and I
I
was really
wasn't supposed to come. I
disappointed.
was supposed to have family things, but the heat kind of killed those. So it is for me. Like, I can go over and talk to Nick Script or John McGlynn, or meet Pete, meet some other people. meet Morton Salt Boy. I can meet those guys and just hang out, and people that I've talked to last year,
I love
and
them
it's so much
all.
fun. Same thing with the expo. The expo for me is a great networking event. It's just a great fun time, and you talk to people, they say it's like a family reunion, but the family you love. And I will say this: the inverse is also true with those. If you go to the expo, you also need to take that online, going from in real life to online. So I think a lot of people go to the expo, they meet these people, go, "Oh, it's great seeing you," and they never follow up. And the only time they ever talk to these people is the expo every year. Like I literally had an index card and I wrote down everyone that I could remember that I talked to. Wrote them all down. And if I didn't have their number, I reached out to them on Twitter. Hey, it was great meeting you. It was great talking to you, right? It was great to see you. Hope you had a great trip, blah, blah, blah. Just something a little simple. Oh, it was great talking to you about this. Because I wanted to just carry on that relationship. And I think that's part of it is relationships take time and effort. Friendships take time and effort. And you have to be willing to put those things in and in multiple ways. You can't just always be in person because you're never gonna get to see them all the time, and if it's only
Right.
expo every year, that's never gonna be enough. If it's only ever on Twitter DMs, that's probably not enough. Like, you need to branch out from there, whether that's going to Facebook or other forms of communication, whatever works best for that person. I'm a phone call person, phone call, text person, whatever that works. I think you need to extend that communication beyond that. So if you're looking to make friends, I think fantasy football is a great way to do it. I think you just need to step outside your boundaries a little bit and just throw something out there. So if you're watching this and you're looking to make friends, go on your league chat tonight and just ask, where's everybody from? And if you know where they're all from, just say, what'd you all major in college? Or did you go to college? Or where did you go to college? Like, find those other things that you can kind of bond over. You just never know. Any other tips for people making friends while they're out there?
Just keep an open mind because
Yep.
there are a lot of just different personalities out there.
Yes.
And sometimes you got to take some of them with a grain of salt, and it's mostly good people here,
Yes.
Dustin. In the grand scheme of things, you've got a few that, maybe you just don't jive with, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
That's okay.
So yeah, so you know who your people are, and cream rises,
Mhm.
so usually, you're going to have maybe a few bad apples here or there, and bad meaning maybe you just don't like their takes, maybe you don't
Yes.
like the way that they talk to women, whatever the case may be. Just stick with your people, and reach out, ask those questions, and don't be afraid, to I don't care, who you're wanting to talk to, whether it's Bob Harris, and believe me, Bob Harris is going to be one of the first one that's going to answer a DM from you.
Yep.
So don't be afraid of that, just because they're a big star. And that's something that I tried to do this year at the expo. So I'm glad you mentioned that. There's certain people I know. I know you. I've met you several times. I've hung out with you. So it's not that I didn't want to talk to you at the expo, because we still talked, but I tried to go up to people maybe I'd never met them before.
Yes.
We've interacted on Twitter. We've retweeted. We've been in leagues together. So I tried to at least get a few people that I had never talked to before, and I'm so glad that I did. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you remember. I know you're going to remember when I start telling you the story. Jagger May,
Yes.
and we took a picture when we were inside at the DoubleTree after the bar had closed and everything. And when you brought the best chicken strips that I've ever eaten in my entire life. Okay, you saved me, and that was the night that I met Jagger. So when I saw Jagger was doing the pros with Joe's, I said, you know what, I'm gonna buy some tickets for him. And guess what? I got picked to have a
It's
team with
awesome.
Jagger. So
Jagger is one of the nicest people
I got a
around.
new friend. I got a new
There you
friend.
go.
So, and that
That's the
was
way to do
all
it.
from fantasy football. So, but the funniest part of the whole story is he's on vacation, and he was up in the mountains in Colorado, and I had to
Yeah.
draft a team by myself pretty much. So I don't know if Jagger and I are still going to be friends after this. He might not like me anymore after the team I drafted. Actually, he said he was very proud of me. So I think we'll do okay.
If I know anything about Jagger, and I've talked to Jagger quite a bit, it's that Jagger is pretty much, whatever. Like, I'll roll with it. Like, I'm cool, and we're gonna go with that. And I think you brought up a good point. Like, you're not gonna get along with everyone, but you
Yeah.
should at least try. And I will say this piece of advice: try 2 or 3 times because there's people that I have met that I'm just like, oh man, me and him just didn't, me or them did not get along. I'll put out there that first Chicago live draft. I was like, man, Andy Barron's and I just didn't click at all. And I was like, I don't like everyone says he's such a great guy. And I was like, he just we just never connected. And then this year I came, he was like, oh hey, and we just like instantly like he recognized me and it was just like we talked. I was like, oh man, like I totally had a misconception, and we just never know like what they're going through that day. And I think Andy is a great guy, and like it was just a misconception on maybe he was having a bad day, maybe he was just focused on the draft, whatever it is. Yeah, Jagger is amazing. Yeah, he will sweep you off your feet. He's a pretty strong dude too, so he can lift most people. So, but I think you got to try 2 or 3 times with people. And if you just don't get along with them, that's fine. You don't have to get along with everyone. You have to be. I think it's a common courtesy amongst if you're a human being and an adult to be courteous and kind to people on a regular basis. But you don't have to be friends with everyone. But at least you should try. And I think that's part of it. Is like you can reach out to people 2 or 3 times and say, "Hey, how's it going? What's new?" And if it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't go anywhere. Like don't spend all your time and energy chasing after someone because you want to be their friends. Just find your people and that's what you need. But you have to put some effort into it. I think a lot of people just want friendships to fall in their lap. And the older you get, right? I'll be 42 this year. Wendy, you're like 30. You're like 32. So
Yes,
you know,
I am. Thank you,
the older
Justin.
you get, Wendy, it's harder to make friends as an adult because there's just less places. You don't have college or school to go through. You don't, maybe you have some work friends, but taking them from work to real life is the same as taking from fantasy to real life, getting beyond the workplace. It's hard. So you have a common denominator in fantasy football and let that be the start. But I think you have to put some work into it to try to get some friendships. Before we end, I wanted to do a keep trade cut with you, Wendy.
Okay.
Here's my keep trade cut.
All right.
You got a keep trade cut? A phone call, a text, or a handwritten letter? What do you keep trade cutting?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I'm going to cut the phone call. Okay. Just because I know, but listen, there's a reason. Okay.
Okay.
Let me finish. So the text I'm going to trade, texting, we're all going to text. I mean, come on, grandma's text anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
grandma's, grandpa's, but the handwritten letters, if I send a card, there's going to be a handwritten letter in there because I want you to know that I didn't just go to the, Walgreens, pick up the card, sign my name, put it in the envelope and send it to you. I thought about what I wanted to say. I wanted to tell you how great you are, why I'm sending this to you, how grateful I am that we're friends, whatever, I'm sorry for your loss, whatever that case may be. I'm a big handwritten note person. So I know it said handwritten letter, maybe not as much, but the handwritten, I would say the handwritten notes for me is just something that I'll never get away from. And maybe it's my generation because I know not a lot of people do it anymore. And that's why I do it still, because when you get that, if you don't get those very often, you're going to appreciate it when you do.
Yeah, for me, I'm keeping the phone call. I love talking on the phone. I might just be that kind of person. So my wife, my best friend John, my wife calls him wife number 1. My wife is wife number 2, and now Steve Falco from Front Office Pros is wife number 3. Because Steve and I will talk on the phone for hours. Like he'll call me and we'll just talk for hours about football and life and fantasy. He's one of my best friends now. And we could talk for hours. And it's just always, we start talking about football, and then we start talking about, growth and podcasting and Twitter and how to, expand our reach in the whole business side. Then we just start talking about life and we talk about Survivor. I can't trade or cut a phone call.
Yeah.
Handwritten note or letter is super nice. Now I have horrible handwriting, so getting a handwritten letter or note for me is probably illegible. I love them. So one of my dad's best friends. My dad has 2 friends that he's known since like 2nd grade. One of them has a letter that my dad wrote them when I was born, and last time I was there like 10 years ago, he showed me, and that was like super cool to have. So I like that as in terms of like keepsakes and nostalgia. So I'll probably trade that. Like I think that still has a ton of value out there for people to handwritten letters. I think it's something we need to do more of, like sending handwritten notes to people, and part of that's just hard because there's no, you don't want to give your address out to random people.
Yeah,
And
that's true too.
I will cut the text. I think text they're fine. Like it's fine to just here's a little bit of information. If I can type more than 2 sentences, I might as well just call you. Like let's just talk, and because you're gonna have questions and the back and forth. Like, let me just call you. It's texts are
If
great if it's like, hey
if
honey,
you send,
pick up milk. Like that's a text.
you're gonna know it. I'm sure you know this, but if you send more than one text to John McGlynn, he's gonna call
Oh,
you.
he's gonna call me. Yeah,
He
easily.
he
Yeah.
hates texting. It's like you send more than one, he's gonna call.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from there.
And text it, I always tell my wife, she's like, pick up this and stuff. I'm like, just text me because I need a list. Like, I need to have that list or I'm going to forget most of the things you want and I'll get all the stuff I want. Text to me is just a utilitarian, like, it's a tool, not a meaningful conversation for the most part. So I will keep phone call, trade handwritten letter or note, and I will cut text. So let
All
us know
right.
in the chat what you would keep, trade, cut, phone call, text, or handwritten letter or note. Wendy, thank you so much for coming on and talking about going beyond your league and how to make friends through fantasy football and how fantasy football can be heightened by friendship. Before we go, tell everybody one last time where they can find you and what you got coming up.
All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Wendi Early, and I will be with the Sneaky Flex show on Thursday night on the Women of Fantasy Football's YouTube channel with the Sneaky Girls, Maisie and Rowan. Yeah, so I'm super excited about that. That'll be 6:30 every Thursday during the season, and it's about 15 minutes. The girls, 15 minutes for 9-year-old girls.
That's good.
That's going to be the max. It's going to be the max, but I'm so looking forward to it and so looking forward to watching this next generation come up. So and I'm still with the sports affiliation. You guys make sure they're putting out tons of content
A
right
ton
now.
of content.
They really are. They're working hard, to get people to be able to win some money, win their leagues. So, make sure you go and follow the sports affiliation as well as Women of Fantasy Football and Club FFL.
And like always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Come over to YouTube, drop a like and subscribe on the Bridge the Gap YouTube. I appreciate everybody tuning in tonight, dropping your comments in there. We hope to continue these conversations. Like this conversation can continue after the show is over. So drop a comment, hit me up on Twitter. Love to have conversations with you guys, and we can take that conversation elsewhere. Until next week, have a great one.